Are you the kind of builder who really doesn't know where you're up to? You don't know whether you're punch bored or drilled as far as your business development understanding is concerned? Today, I'm going to teach you about the 3 levels of learning inside your construction business. Once you get a hold of that, it'll change the way you think about business development and scaling up. Enjoy. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name is Max, I'm your host. Welcome to you if you're in podcast land, welcome to you if you're in YouTube land, and welcome to you if you're in TikTok. We've got TikTok live going over here. Hey, great to have you in the house. As usual, like and subscribe, all that kind of juicy stuff. Get across to Business for Builders VIP, answer the 3 questions if you're a good sort of in. And make sure if you want to have a chat with me about business coaching, specifically for residential builders and general contractors, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com is the best place to just ask me a couple of questions. Or if you want to jump into a complimentary coaching session, get across to elitebusinessadvisory.com, hit the book a consultation, pick your time zones. I'm on this Vancouver, LA time zone, Pacific Standard, so make sure you don't book your meeting for 3 o'clock in the morning your time, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to show up. So look, there's no strings attached, guys and gals. Last episode we talked about the different stages or phases of growth or education in your building career, and that's between elementary or primary school and then secondary and then tertiary. I'm trying to cater for everybody's level, and so I don't overfeed them or I don't underfeed them. So I absolutely subscribe to, of course, because I've gone through learning processes. The more you learn, the more you earn. Leaders are readers. That talks about education and the power of. So if you want to chat with me about that or get into a complimentary coaching session, do it, because we should be starting, we're videoing this in November. We should be starting to think about what we're doing in the first 90 days of 2026 if we're a good business operator. So welcome to everyone. Let's get after it. Steak and potatoes as usual. Really what I do as a builder talking to builders, or as a general contractor talking to general contractors, I believe that a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is really straight out of the field. This has not come from a university course. This is what I do. I run a building company with my business partner. And so, I think something that I don't think I've alluded to it before, power of partnership and things like that. But today I'm going to chat with you about how to select a business partner. Because, so far with what Jed and I have done and the business relationship that we have, one day I'll get him on the show here and we might just sit down at a table and shoot the shit about, how we've gone in our first couple of years of business. And, for me, I enjoy doing business with other humans. I've been involved in the franchise world for a while. Certainly had business partners in that, as a franchisor, which was, exciting times. Now I'm in a business partnership with another builder. And, I think that exponential leveraging capacity or capabilities from a business partnership standpoint is worth considering. I'm not saying that it's going to work out perfect for you. Because it really comes down to, like anything that's gone well in my life is because I picked the right human to do business with. Anything that hasn't gone so well, it's because I didn't pick the right human to do business with and it didn't work out. Having been married for 30 years, I don't know whether I picked the right human or whether she just puts up with me, but either way, it's been a while. And so, things have always evolved. And I think in a partnership, whether it's a marriage partnership or whether it's a business partnership, there's a lot of things to consider before you get married, let's say, and certainly as you go through your journey of life, whether it's business or whether it is a married life. I think there's always iterations and there's always considerations, and absorbing other people's idiosyncrasies is par for the course. It's just got to be done. So what I'm going to do real quick here is, I guess, off the back of my experience in and around working with business partners and seeing the difference that it makes and the dynamics that are associated therein, I'm going to try and share with you, because, the more I do this with Jed, the more excited I get about building a business, probably more so than I've ever done before. Now, When I run a carpentry business back home in Oz, I had Jason, who was a mate of mine, and he ended up working for me as a carpenter, and then he ended up working for me as an estimator. And I really enjoyed that time, even though Jace was an employee. He was a good mate before we got into business, still is a good mate. It was really, I enjoyed the interaction, the collaboration, and the journey together. And I think a lot of the time it's what makes business exciting is when you have got that ability. And I know a lot of the time, there's guys that I have for the most part in Elite Business Advisory, my coaching clients, they don't have a business partner. Now, some of them have a husband and wife team, which is cool, but that's a pretty tricky dynamic as well. It's very difficult to go to work and do the business and then come home and be a married couple. That does put strain, so you've got to have a fairly good understanding of each other's personalities and what their hot buttons are and what to do and what not to do, and have some guidelines and some guardrails and some boundaries and some, the ability to manage expectations around who wants what. And so, I think, but I absolutely believe, and I'm going to get into it here, that, we can develop something that is special, that is no less valuable than if you were the sole owner of the company. And you start looking at big companies like, Jeff Bezos, obviously he needs investors and he's got a massive army of people that do the whole Amazon thing. And Steve Jobs is another guy that comes to mind. Richard Branson is another guy that comes to mind. So even Alex Hormozy more recently, like they're running with business partners and collaborators and people that they are like-minded who have got a very similar end result or goal that they can actually push forward. And really, that rising tide lifts all ships, okay? And so we use that analogy, in businesses or, as a marketplace. But I think what is good about what Jed and I do is that I've got his back and he's got my back. And when I go and doing sales, I know that what I'm doing today in sales and project management, it doesn't just affect my family, but I'm in there and I'm going into bat for his family. And he's got the same focus when he's on a job site, that he's not just batting for his family, he's also batting for my family. And there is some exponential benefit in when you've got that going on. And so let's get into some detail here. So I've got, six things outlined here. And, I really think there's two things that I'm going to kick off with. The first one, I'm going to write these up straight away. The first thing is purpose. And the second thing is values. Let's get that straight from the start. Okay, you've got to be purpose-driven. Like if you're rolling into your office or you're starting work and you're really just kind of dwelling aimlessly and you don't know, what's going on and where you're going and why you're doing it, things like that, it makes it pretty difficult, because part of developing a purpose is so that you can harness the power of intent. Like, I intend to be successful in business. That's a very broad goal, okay? But when you begin to develop that muscle group, then what you start thinking about, and like I chatted about real quick on the last episode, including today, I've got my whole calendar from 7 till 5 blocked out in 30-minute increments. Now, some of those are I just go event B for block, save. Because I don't know what I'm going to be doing there yet. And I prioritize, I triage. So it's like, right, I'm going to do this in the first half of the day. Last part of the day, I'm going to jump in my truck and I'm going to do a bit of a milk run and, whatever. But it's what I've got is that day, I've got a purpose for that day, okay? And so I think that's very micro. But then we've also got to have, some purpose. So you need a business partner that's going to share the same long-term vision for the business as what you do. That's super important, okay? Purpose alignment. So when you do have the same vision for the business and what it is that you're trying to create together, that alignment avoids conflicts, right, in the direction and the priorities and the goals that go with the business building side of things. Because you always hear, we're going to build a business and we're going to scale up and, we've got systems and people and there's no real organization, right? And so it's important that we have the ultimate direction in mind and then we reverse engineer it to make it come to fruition. Okay, so if one business partner is just all about profit only and the other is purpose-driven, is guaranteed to be friction. What I love about Jed and I, and you know what, even more so, as much as I talk about branding and customer experience and white glove service and top shelf and boutique, mate, my business partner, he is so generous. He's almost too generous. And so we're good for each other because I'm going, Jed, remember, pal, we're not a charity. We're here to make money for our families, right? I've actually got to pull him back from, and I think there's a lot of builders out there that have got such a high level of generosity and have got a desire to serve the customer. They do it at their own detriment, okay? And I'm not saying, we've got some plans for this larger job that we're doing right now, and it's not in the specifications, but we understand what our client loves, and so we have got a little bit of a surprise in store, and, he's going to fly in for the last walk around, probably in the early part of May next year. And we're not going to do this scope until he's back on the plane. And the next time he sees it will be the reveal. Okay. And, it's because we love the wow factor. We love to impress clients, but we've got to have that alignment where we go, hey, we've got to, in the middle, we've got to make money, but I'm all about turning our clients into raving fans, right? So we've got to have that shared purpose, and that equals shared decision, the decision-making filter. So whenever Jed and I get together and we're making decisions, because we've got the ultimate purpose in mind, the way we make decisions actually is complementary, right? There's not conflict. It's the opposite of conflict, and that's super important. So then we start talking about values. And so, one of my top shelf values is that, we communicate, open, honest communication, okay? Not just open, but it's honest as well. You can't be open and telling lies, right? So, I value high level communication. So actually, I think the last episode, I actually got a call from Jed, and I didn't want to leave that phone ring, even though it was sitting on my desk here. So I hit an automatic message response and said, mate, I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back shortly. Bang, send. He's now on standby. He knows that I've acknowledged his call. I can't live with myself if I don't communicate at the highest level. Matter of fact, I probably over communicate, and my wife is not a big communicator, so it irritates the bejeebers out of her. She's like, really? So it's something that I value. So when I get a guy, now here's the flip side. Jed doesn't communicate like I do. When I send him a text and I don't get a thumbs up, it's like, oh bro, are you upset with me? But I absorb that idiosyncrasy because I know that he's not at the same level I'm at as far as, now I'm a protector. I've, been with my wife for 32 years. I've got 6 kids, 5 of which are driving now. That scares the crap out of a father, especially my second youngest child. She's 17 and just got a driver's license. She's out there thinking it's great. And so I'm, freaking out because now we're going into winter, so the roads get a bit icy, so we get into that overprotection mode and that over communication. Girl, you got to tell me where you are, the old control freak dad. But nonetheless, it's about communication. But values now determines how each of us as business partners behaves. And this is interesting because it's like values are our anchor, okay? And so it's not just having values that determine how each of us behaves, it's how each of us behaves under stress. Okay, think about that. Because I'm a fairly cool and calm and collected character, but there is occasions where if there is stress that's dumped on me, or if there's something that's on me, I tend to go fight mode, right? Which is not an appropriate reaction. Okay, and that's really, when something happens in the business, how do I respond to that? How do I react? Am I a person that is combative, that loves to fight, which my DNA has that? And I've got to regulate. That's my favorite word. It's always the self-talk is Max, you've got to regulate. Because I, in a weird way, enjoy confrontation. I like getting up in your grill. And I like asking the tough questions. And I like pushing back. I'm a competitor by nature. Do I win all the time? No. I probably lose more times than I win. Okay? But I enjoy the competition. Anything that we do is a competition. It's like, I'm doing it for my reasons. I just want to build the biggest building in town, and I'm looking at all the other buildings going, right, we've got to build 20 stories because everyone else is 15. And what that does is it just embeds in me a desire to win. It keeps me going. It's part of my purpose, right? But I won't step outside my value system to achieve that. That's why I take a leaf out of Gary Vaynerchuk's book where he says, I'm not about building the biggest building in town by pulling everyone else's buildings down. It's not what I'm about. What I'm about is looking at everyone else, admiring their success and go, but I think I can do it better. That's what we're in the game for, right? Remember, business It doesn't have a finish line. The goal of business is to stay in business. This business game is an infinite game, okay? And so if you didn't have a good year this year, guess what, folks? You can still have a good year next year. You just got to get better. Right. Okay, part of the value system, integrity, communication, problem-solving capabilities, and professionalism, that all must match together. You know, I am blown away by the level of, attention to detail that, Jed in the field does along with his site foreman over there, Jacob. And the stuff that they put together is just like, it's better than what I could do. And I love that. It's so refreshing to know that, there's guys out there in the field that are such great technicians and the clients just are so impressed. And it warms my heart because I don't sit here going, are they going to build that plumbing straight and square? Is it going to be done well? Is it going to be waterproof? It doesn't enter my mind for 1 minute because I know that I've been blessed enough to match up with a couple of really good guys. And I wish that on you as well. Misaligned values can cause resentment and it would slow down the progress of your company build or your scaling up. It'll cause division as well, okay? So that's why, it matters. It certainly matters a lot. Values alignment results in trust, which is absolutely, the number one ingredient. I think there's two things, especially in a rock and roll band. There's chemistry. I've had good chemistry with guys, but over time I've learned not to trust them because I can't. There's something's happened and I'm like, you know what? Cool guy, fun to be around, but I don't trust him one iota, not one bit. I couldn't, I just don't. And because something's happened, which has eroded that trust. And now that trust, can it be rebuilt? Yes, over time. But, really in business or in marriage, trust is all that matters. Because if people don't trust me, then I've let them down at some level. Now, is that a scarlet letter? Not really. I can rebuild that. I've just got to be able to be consistent and build that trust back up to a level where we maybe, don't get back to where we were, but at least it's something there that resembles some normality. You don't need someone to like you, but you need someone who behaves in alignment. That's part of the value system. All right. So that's just understand the power of purpose and the harnessing the power of intent, and understand how the value system is what I use for qualification and accountability. Okay. What I want to talk to you real quick about the next one is 50% of a watermelon versus 100% of a grape. Now, if you look back in my podcast, I've done a specific episode on this, but it just came to mind as I was preparing this morning. And, I think when I look at my business partnership with Jed, mate, I will take 50% of a watermelon all day as opposed to having 100% of the grape. Because, the reason I'm diving into this is that I see a lot of builders. I have a lot of guys come through the door and talk to me about what they want to do in their business and they're contemplating business coaching, etc. And the more I teach, it's like this, the further I go as a CEO or a business owner or a business coach or a father or a husband, the more I realize how much I don't know. And this is why there's always a call to continuous improvement, continuous education, getting better at what is going on in your life. Just concentrate that which is in your hands at the moment. Don't worry about fighting fires that are way down the track that you think might happen. Deal with what's going on right now and consolidate. And consolidation just means to make strong that which you have. Right? So if your life is a personal shit show, you probably need to organize that first before you start thinking about business. Because business is not just about making money, right? And I've had people say to me, well, money's not important, but I will say it's right up there with oxygen. So, there's the balancing act. It's like, we need to make a profit, but I'm not going to do it I'm not going to go and sacrifice my integrity to make money. And I've seen guys do that and they're assholes, okay? So it's really important. So what we're going to talk about is this watermelon and grape principle. And I think there's an element of, if you get too tied up and why guys go here, the 100% of a grape, mate, is because of their ego is out of check. And you know what ego is just a blanket that covers insecurity. And you might have a different view on that, but I've talked to enough clients recently about this, and we've talked about guys and gals in their group, in their company, and we've talked about some of the behavior, and I said, that's insecurity. And they're like, no, it's just an ego. And that's where we start talking about ego as the blanket that covers insecurity. So here's where I start talking about, don't worry about making money. I can set you up in business and you can educate you around financial management, but where that business is going to go is going to be based on your level of leadership. So you've got to get yourself sorted out first. You can't be an insecure leader out there and expect people to follow you. Because people that have this, now I'm not saying it's, I mean, I know plenty of guys that own the business with no business partners. I'm not saying that's not the case. But what I'm saying, what I'm getting at is that building a building company has a lot of moving parts. And I personally wouldn't like to be the guy that's got to sit behind my computer and communicate or lead management, communicate with new leads, site visits, initial estimated price ranges, bill of quantities, and then putting together that final quote, contract administration, setting up and scheduling, procurement of materials, and then quality control on a building site all the way to completion. Like, that is a lot of business. Do I want it to be, it's like, in my mind, I'm willing to give up half the watermelon, so my quality of life. So when we talk about more profit, better lifestyle, to me, I'm going for this in the watermelon side of things, right? So let's just keep that. I want to give you that context to make sure that I'm not against you owning your own company. But be warned, if you're in the elementary stage or you're in primary school and you're optimistic about building your own building company, be forewarned. Because what you're going to do is your ability to learn and to execute off the back of that information is going to govern the ceiling height at which you build your business to. So you might go, Max, I'm already doing $1 million. I'm a gangster. I reckon I can go to 3 million. Okay, time will tell. And I guarantee you, mate, it's not that easy to do by yourself. Now, you might have 100% of the grape, but I'm telling you right now, like for me and my guy, Jason, I needed Jace to do the estimating because I knew I couldn't do it all. See, so this is the evaluation program. And look, I was picking a kid up from 15 minutes out of town. I was driving down the highway going, I need to go back into construction for a whole bunch of reasons. But at that time, I'm like, I'm not going to do it by myself. And I'm literally driving my youngest boy home, and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to give Jed a call. Literally, hit the button. Hey, Siri, call Jed. Bang. That phone call is what started it. It was a little seed. But I had talked to Jed 5 years previously about franchising, and he was a good guy, good family, good kids, about 8 years my junior, but he just didn't understand the corporate thing and really didn't like it. But when I said to him, mate, I'll take care of all the corporate, I just need you to do construction, manage it, he was like, in. And I'm like, awesome. See, so that's really my story. That's really how it happened. Okay, so a strong partnership can create scale, speed, leverage, and expansion. So what we're busy doing right now, me and Jed, is we're consolidating. We've got good systems. We do POs. We understand back costing. We've got bookkeepers sorted out. We've got our accountants over here. Good relationships with vendors. Good relationships with subcontractors. Now we're about to flick a switch. We've already paid for our home show place for our dual booth at the next home show in March. So we're already forecasting that coming into the new year, we're going to be on it straight away. Like, there's all of these kinds. Money loves speed. Okay, and I've always said this. Imagine we could do $1 million reno and we could do it in 30 days. Well, that's really good for your bottom line, because at the moment it's going to take us more like 8 months to do a job that's $1 million. It's just the way it is. But money does love speed, and of course we've got to make sure that we can, push the business in a positive direction. Right, so the right business partner will help you grow faster and carry a heavy load. A business that grows with 2 strong leaders is usually bigger than 1 leader alone. Now, for me and Jed, I think we're alpha dogs. You dare not put us in the same room together, because we're so opinionated and so confident in what we do that we might get under each other's feet. But we've got such a diverse and separate roles that it's so complementary then, okay? Because, I say to a lot of people, I said, yeah, Jed does all the hard work. I just sit in the office and get all the paper cuts, right? But I'm telling you right now, Jed does not want to do what I do. And I don't need to do what he does, because the easiest thing to do is to find carpenters. The hardest thing to do is to find a general manager that can manage a business that's doing 7 figures. Okay, equity becomes more valuable when the business becomes more powerful. I think when clients look at doing business with us, in my signature, if you were to send me an email to my company email and I would return serve, especially out of JobTread, it comes from myself and Jed, right? Because I want homeowners to go, okay, these guys are running businesses. So then when I get talking to them, I then share with them that I'm involved in sales and project management. Jed's involved in construction management. And so we have very different roles in the business, and I think clients look at that and they think, wow. So there's when you can get this concept established, if you're owning the whole business, fine. I know this, I'll tell you this, you've got to understand that you're gonna need good people to grow. And so I think most good business owners have ever developed a business have people around them that are technicians in certain fields that actually do that job better than the founder could do, okay? So don't get all insecure and go, I'm gonna make sure that I know everything and I can do, and like, get out of my way, I'll do it myself. That is a limiting thinking in your brain, and it's a factor that's gonna reduce your ability to succeed in business, okay? Right, so what are some important qualities? Number 4 here. We're gonna, you gotta think about what are important qualities to you and what are important qualities to the business, okay? So, and I was just talking about complementary strengths. So, you've got to have everything that I just outlined. Jed's all about construction. I'm all about project management and sales. Shared work ethic and a standard of excellence. So between me and Jed, I've got such an appreciation for his commitment to the business, and I believe that he has an appreciation for my commitment to the business, right? And of course, a standard of excellence. He at personal cost, sacrifice, he will ensure that the highest level of output is provided, right? He will not cut corners. And I appreciate that, and I love that. And so, and he knows that everything I'm doing in the office is all about organization and professionalism and high levels of communication, and he appreciates that. So it's important that that standard of excellence is up there as well. Mutual respect, direct communication, and emotional maturity. And this is, the emotional maturity, I think, is about the absorption of idiosyncrasies. We're not all perfect, okay? And so I think for any relationship to work long-term, there's points in your life where that person is going to irritate you, but is it worth, ask yourself the question, is it worth dying on that hill? More often than not, it's not, as long as it doesn't transition into an abusive relationship. That's something that's got to be measured. Mutual respect is important. And of course, direct communication. We always have a sit down. Like, mate, am I doing anything that's bugging you? I literally want to throw myself, at his feet and say, what can I do better? What don't you like? What do you like? Like, that's that open, honest communication kicking in. Right, and that's where it leads on to the ability to disagree respectfully. And we've got such mutual respect. I'm always keen to get his opinion. And he certainly, in some cases, he's going, mate, I will say this to clients. I'm going to defer that to Jed. That's an on-site decision that needs to be made. I will support it from the office, but he's the lead dog in that regard. And of course, the flip side, the flip side is also the truth when Jed's kind of like, he's like, mate, I'll trust you with whatever you decide to go ahead with. So that's certainly important. Both partners bring something meaningful to the table, time, money, skills, and network. And that's exactly what's that time, money, skills, and network is definitely when Jed and I blended all of those, our time, our money, our skills, and our network together, boy, it's super powerful. Right, the next thing, point number 5 is the challenges, okay? Because you inevitably, okay, you're going to have partnership challenges. So there's no point in sugarcoating. The honeymoon period for Jed and I was the first phone call, the chatting about the possibilities. We then moved into the shareholder agreement, sitting down with lawyers, putting that together, and a quick piece of advice, guys and gals, if you're going to do it and you've gone through that qualification phase, Jed and I looked at each other one day and I said, well, mate, look, if we're going to go to the next level and we're going to really give this a shunt, I said, what we've got to do is 2 things. We've got to set up another corporation and we'll have lawyers do that. And to that end, we'll also have a shareholder agreement, which basically maps out the rules of conduct for us as directors within inside the business and gives us the boundaries and the guardrails to ensure that we are operating at a level where there's a clear understanding of, our roles within the business. So, some of the partnership challenges, which are inevitable, okay? Remember, it's partnership, it's not perfection. Understand that it's partnership is not perfection, right? So let's not set a too high a target where it's unrealistic, but let's not be laxy-daisy and just accept any of the shit that rolls down the hill. Let's not do that either. What we want to have is in the middle, it's called a realistic view, okay? So, different personalities and pressure, okay, will result in conflict unless we're aligned on the purposes and the purpose of the business and the values, which is where we started, okay? So Jed's personality is different to my personality. There is some commonalities, but there's some differences, right? And so I've got to make space for him and he's got to make space for me, especially when we're under pressure. And I think, one of my attributes, what I bring to the table in the partnership, Jed gets concerned because we've got about 4 jobs on the go and with another one coming in, and he's worried about one of our larger clients. And I just say to Jed, mate, just breathe. That's my job. I will handle customer relations. And he's like, we're talking about building a team. And, I don't mind employing guys, but I don't like firing. I said, Jed, I'll do that for you. I'll have you with me, but I'll do it. And he's like, phew, So, Jed there's so many similarities, but then there's so many differences as well. And that's where, if you're not careful, that difference, you can look at that and start criticizing, but you've just got to embrace the good and the bad. It's literally a marriage. Decision-making requires compromise. Ego must be left out of the game. There's no room for ego. Guys, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror, and girls, and go, am I operating? Am I posturing? And a classic example is this. Dudes do this all the time, right? They'll go and spend money. They'll go and buy this vehicle and they'll justify it. Well, it's got airbags and it's got great fuel economy and, reliability, blah, blah, blah. But really they bought it because it's got 600 horsepower and it cuts a good burnout, and it's got a great quarter mile and, it's a good pose car. That's bullshit ego, right? So what they'll do is they'll spend money they haven't got on shit they can't afford to impress people who actually don't give a rat's ass. See, that's you've got an ego that is covering the insecurity, okay? So we want to really make sure that, we have that understanding about ourselves if we are to go into partnership with somebody else. So in the decision-making with Jed, there's no, I'm better than Jed, so I'm going to take, I'll be saying to him, see, questions are the answer. So whether I'm dealing with a client, whether I'm dealing with, a retail client, construction, or whether I'm dealing with an EBA, Elite Business Advisory coaching client, or whether I'm dealing with Jed, I want to ask him the questions. I'm like, mate, this is what I'm thinking. This is why I'm thinking it. What do you think about? I want his feedback because he's my business partner. Because with his fresh set of eyes, which usually is unemotional, he might see something and say something that I've not even thought about. See, there is safety in counsel. This is why doing it by yourself. Now, here's the difference. If you're up here, Mr. I'm the numero uno, I own the whole show, and you've got a guy who works under you, and he or she is a yes man or a yes gal, what they're not going to do is bring that objectivity to the business because they got no skin in the game, okay? So you've got to be careful. So when I'm dealing with Jed, I want the feedback. So there's no ego on my part. It's like, mate, just give it to me straight. And he's the same. So I think it's because of the level of life, he's got a couple of kids, I've got a couple of kids, we've been, married for a while. And so you get that maturity, the realistic view on life and now here's the thing too. I've been in the game for 35 years. He's been in the game for over 20, maybe 25. And this is our best shot at building a very successful building company in the Okanagan, in British Columbia. And so because of that shared vision and purpose for the business, it allows us to just take it down a notch on the ego thing and just be real. And I tell you what, it's so harmonious and so peaceful. And we enjoy challenges within the business because together, because we're a team, you know what the acronym for team is? Together, everybody achieves more. And I totally subscribe to that now. Now, is there stuff that, is divorce a deal? Absolutely. 1 in 2 marriages will end in divorce. It's unfortunate. 50% of general contracting companies go out of business in the first 5 years. Of the remaining 50% by year 10, 50% of those guys are out of business as well. So nothing is perfect. But what we're trying to do is navigate our way through our life and figure out what works best for us. And this might be something that is worth opening your mind to. And maybe you're just getting started. Maybe you're mid-20s, 30s, early 30s, and you're not there yet. I mean, really, my first business partnership happened to me when I was 43, 44, something like that. And then this is the second, this is another one that I've gotten into, and that's I'm 52. So, if you're 30 years of age going, I need to look for a business partner now, well, maybe you don't. Mate, I'd encourage you to go and mess it up a few times and go, what Max said 2 years ago is now starting to resonate with me. I think I need to start to think about partnership, and try to find that piece of talent that is going to complement. We've got a shared purpose and vision for the business is the same and our core values are the same. That's who I'm looking for. And what I encourage you to do is throw that out there to the universe and just start thinking about it. And then all of a sudden what you'll find is something might come across your path where you go, you know what, that fits the bill. We've got to give that a crack, whatever the case might be. Right. Financial, some of the challenges will be financial disagreements, workload imbalance, and leadership styles. So, I guess for me and Jed, we're so far apart as far as what I do and what he does. We certainly don't get into that, the leadership style, because I don't encroach on what he does on a job site. I might speak to it, give him my opinion, but ultimately he's the ultimate decision maker, right? Workload imbalance, we don't monitor that. I know that he's all about getting the job done as quickly as possible. He knows I'm about getting to the sale as quick as possible. And we just keep talking to each other. It's the open, honest communication that actually helps us, critique our work balance. Now, the best thing too, when you talk about open, honest communication and ensuring that he knows what I'm doing, good part about JobTread is that he sees every single message that I send out. He sees every single bid request I send out. He sees every single PO that I send out. His inbox is just full of communication that I tap away, send, tap away, return, submit. He's just like bombarded. And I said, mate, did you see that? He's like, yeah, I've seen what you've been doing. I'm head down, ass up with communications. I just sit at my office desk and I'm communicating with vendors, subcontractors, homeowners and clients and things like that. And he sees that, so he knows that the workload. And of course, I'm always about, if you're a client of mine, you'll know that I start talking around the 15th and the 20th of the month, like what contracts are we signing? That's the question to me. But then I go to Jed and say, mate, when are we hitting stage claims? So that's how I know. I'm like, dude, we haven't hit a stage claim here for a while. Maybe that job's running a little lean or we're too far. Did I do something wrong in the contract? Did I create, and to avoid that, I have the conversation with Jed and I'm saying, mate, these are the stage claims that I'm going to put through. Is there too much gap between them? Because I don't want to run out of money, okay? So that's this whole thing, really iron sharpens iron in a big way is what Jed and I have got going on here. So, as to avoid or remedy the challenges, like to overcome the challenges, we've got to have that realistic view, but I think that half the battle is to make clear our roles and responsibilities and the decision rights, and that's part of in the shareholder agreement is there, but I will always cross-check with Jed, and he always, like he's having to buy some other tools and he's like, is it okay if I said, mate, tell me about it, you need it, get it. The PO's already set up, go buy it from, BC Fasteners or Home Depot or whatever. Right, now the final part there is obviously the partnership rewards. And, I think this is the most exciting thing because we do it we want more profit. And in the business, we want to create more profit so that we can enjoy a better lifestyle. It's the ultimate goal of business, right? So the reward is a shared burden, reduces the possibility of burnout if the burden is shared. If one guy's carrying too much load, he's going to burn out, right? Pointless, right? But if there's a shared burden, obviously we're going to have the reduced burnout is going to be a thing. Second thing there is more capacity equals more revenue equals more opportunities. If we do 1.5 this year, but we've got the thing set up in such a way we can do 2.5, then that's a good thing. And that's part of the reward of sharing the burden. Got it? Better accountability and better discipline. There is so much life, inside of the accountabilities, whether it's a marriage relationship or whether it's a business relationship, right? When you've got accountability in your life, your quality of life is better when there's accountability. You know, it's just, I feel like, I don't know whether it's safer, I feel happier when I'm out and my wife knows where I'm up to. Hey, I'm just leaving the office now, I'm going to have drinks at Mr. Mike's with Jed, whatever the case is. I like to be transparent because I don't want her thinking that I'm up to something. I don't want Jed thinking that I'm up to something. You know, I'm saying, mate, here's the financial report. This is what we've done in revenue. This is our costs. This is our level of profitability in this job so far. I want him to know that so that he knows that I'm doing my part in the business. That's called accountability. There's safety there. More brains, more experience, more perspective equals better decisions. And I'm telling you, there's decisions that we make every day in the business. A lot of that right now is project management. So when we're talking, like schedule, which is kind of project management, but we're talking, we've got rain days and then we've got demands of clients and we've got little projects and larger projects. And Jed and I, anytime we get on the phone, it's going to be an hour phone call, give or take. Okay. And then of course, once a week, we're going to catch up at our local watering hole and we kind of own the table there and we just roll out plans and binders and, you know, iPads and shit. And that's our little, you know, meet and greet, and that's where we bring the site together with the office, and it's important. And we enjoy a few drinks at the same time. More brains, yeah. The company becomes resilient, not dependent on one person. And this is kind of where I'll lead off, and I'll close out here in a minute. But, you know, Jed had a bit of an accident. He blew his left elbow up. He's left-handed, had massive scar under his arm, and he was basically, you know, off the job site. And you know, he came to me and said, mate, I'm happy to take a pay cut. I said, Jed, I got you back, okay? He's such an important part of the business. The reason we're building the business is to ensure safety for our family. And I said, mate, we will work through this. You don't have to take a pay cut. It's your business. Shit happens, right? And so that was my opportunity to, a very tangible way to reinforce my commitment to not just the business, but to him and his family. That, mate, we can't have you at a half, you know, I know you're at half pace, but we can't have it. Furthermore, then 4 weeks later, the thing gets infected. He goes back in, has to have it operated on, has a stent in his arm. And then the doctor says, you can't be in an industrial environment. So it actually got worse. So for 6 weeks, he was out again. So all up, this is 10 to 12 weeks thing. But it's like, mate, you know, what's the marital vows? Through sickness and in health, you know, till death do we part. I mean, it's my commitment to my marriage, and it's no different to Jed as my business partner. Mate, as long as I can hold out for you, I bloody well will. And I'm not saying, I was about to say that's an Aussie thing, but I think that's a human thing for the right people. Anyone that's a shyster and a scumbag and a frigging scammer and a frigging con artist, no, that's got nothing to do. They don't know about that. But for me, as a true blue Aussie living in Canada, that's how I'm a protector. It's what I want to do for my business partner. I think he appreciates that. So here's some practical steps to finish on. Okay, in closing, practical steps before choosing a business partner. Make sure you're aligned. First thing, make sure you're aligned on purpose and values. Everything else is secondary. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, have tough conversations early. So money, any conflicts that arise, the workload, exit plans. It's best to just get it on the table and talk about it amicably and maturely, and make sure that we're working towards a common goal. Either we're overcoming challenges or we are separating. That's what can happen. Okay, third thing, outline the roles and decision rights in writing, which is part of the shareholder agreement. And then you get into the micro about what we do in the business on a daily basis as well. So, we've got a few little projects to start with, and that was a good way to feel our way through. I'd suggest you do that too. Before you sign a partnership, maybe just do a very loose project together and see how it works out. And then, of course, get that professional legal advice to structure the partnership professionally and correctly to make sure you are ticking all the boxes from a governmental and a legislative standpoint, and make sure that in the event that you build it and that you want to pass it on to your kids or you want to sell it, that it has the infrastructure there to do that as well. If you got any questions, hit me up on email, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you want to have a complimentary coaching session, I'll give you 30 minutes of my time, no strings attached. I'll talk about with you, your business goals, what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. See where you're up to as far as elementary or primary, secondary or tertiary. See whether or not We can, have some future together working there as a business coach and client. Get across to elitebusinessadvisory.com, hit the book a consultation button. Make sure you understand your time zone. I'm on the LA, Vancouver, and I would love to have a quick chat with you about your business and see if we can't do some magic together from a business standpoint. Go build a kick-ass business. See you on the next episode. Cheers.